Here's a riddle. What do you get when many California markets push past the $1 million mark, even though the statewide median has hovered closer to $800,000 and incomes lag hundreds of thousands behind? Answer: one of California's most punishing housing traps in 2025. Add insurance premiums that climb faster than rent in a trendy zip code, and it stops feeling like math, it feels like sabotage. Here's the thing. 3 themes repeat in city after city: home prices that dwarf local paychecks, insurance and carrying costs that balloon thanks to climate risk, and cooling markets where owners lock in and buyers face shrinking options. Today we're counting down 10 places where your money gets stranded before it even settles. And first up is the so-called capital of California dreams, where excitement comes with a monthly bill that feels more like a sentence. Number 10. Los Angeles. Los Angeles wears the title of City of Dreams. But for anyone hunting a starter home in 2025, it feels more like a financial trap. The median home price across the metro is around $740,000, according to recent reports, though certain neighborhoods can push far higher. Put that next to a median household income of about $75,000, and the affordability gap isn't just wide, it's almost laughable. Monthly payments at today's rates easily crack the $4,000 mark. Bay Legal ran the math on an $800,000 home with a standard 20% down and 7% mortgage rate, about $425 every single month, and that's before you factor in taxes or fees. It means buyers aren't adding up equity, they're signing up for a decades-long squeeze. And here's the thing, even if you can make that stretch, the costs don't stop at the mortgage. Insurance premiums have steadily climbed, driven by wildfire risk, and some carriers are even scaling back coverage in higher risk zones. Translation: you pay more for less protection, with fewer options. For many households, that adds up to what feels like a second housing bill stacked on top of the first. The payoff isn't there either. Homes that once sparked bidding wars now linger for weeks or months. Nearly 1 in 4 listings saw price drops entering 2025. Nobody wants to sign a $4,000 monthly IOU and then watch the house next door resell for less half a year later. Inventory makes everything worse. Owners locked into ultra-low pandemic-era rates refuse to move, so the selection stays limited, and the few homes on the market often demand bloated asking prices that don't reflect reality. So yes, Los Angeles is iconic, but for buyers chasing stability, it's more money pit than movie set. And if paying all that for shrinking opportunity sounds extreme, just wait until you see another city where prices stay sky high even as residents quietly file their change of address forms. Number 9. Oakland. Oakland asks you to pay Bay Area prices for a city that's steadily losing its crowd. The median listing price floated around $786,500 in 2023, with closed sales nearer to $857,000. Compare that with a median household income under $80,000, and the gap already feels hopeless. You're writing checks sized for tech money while your paycheck belongs to a very different bracket. Here's the thing. Sellers are already blinking. Around 3 in 10 properties are cutting their asking price, and homes now linger on the market for 2 months or more. Local listing cuts and longer market times mirror the broader Bay Area slowdown, signaling lower buyer confidence. But even with those discounts, the risk flags stay up. Crime rates remain among the nation's highest for property crime, eroding neighborhood value. Insurance costs have also climbed, especially in the hills where wildfire exposure keeps pushing premiums higher. Homeowners are paying substantially more than just a few years ago for coverage that's harder to secure. Population trends don't help. Oakland has experienced notable outmigration in recent years, reducing the buyer pool and undermining investment stability. Fewer residents mean fewer buyers, and fewer buyers mean softer demand, even if prices get adjusted. It's like trying to resell a used car. Markdowns don't matter if no one's showing up to kick the tires. That's the uncomfortable reality for homeowners watching listings grow stale while their neighbors roll out moving vans. The buyer dilemma in Oakland is simple and brutal. You overspend to get in, you sweat over crime and insurance costs, and then you discover the appreciation just isn't there to bail you out. That setup is already grim, but in the next stop, the problem isn't just high costs, it's foreclosure rates climbing again, where history has a way of repeating itself. Number 8. Stockton. Stockton has carried some infamous labels before, and in 2025, the numbers show why its reputation hasn't disappeared. The city's pricing sits close to Central Valley medians, roughly $460,000 in recent reports. Yet household incomes hover around $66,000. For many buyers, what looks affordable compared to the Bay Area still feels impossible once you match cost against paychecks. The stress doesn't end there. Foreclosure activity and distressed sales have ticked upward again in Stockton and across the Central Valley, a shift backed by statewide foreclosure snapshots that show pressure growing beyond just one market. Families who stretched into adjustable-rate loans or bought during the low-rate years are now facing higher monthly costs they can't cover. More distressed properties show up in listings, and more reduced signs keep getting tacked on, dragging values down in the process. Here's the twist. Those markdowns don't move quickly. Homes sit on the market for 50 days or more, a sharp break from the feverish demand of the pandemic years. Investors and everyday buyers keep their distance, not because the prices are high, but because the baggage attached feels heavier. Crime rates remain significantly above state and national levels. Market analyses flag the city's volatility and weak high-paying job growth as ongoing deterrents. A lower-priced home loses its appeal when you know selling later could be far harder than buying now. Think of it like grabbing a used car at sticker discount, only to realize it comes with worn brakes and a history nobody wants. Stockton offers entry points on paper, but the exit strategy looks shaky at best. And while Stockton dangles affordability with a catch, head further south and the trade-off flips. You'll find paradise views where the bigger problem is how much of your paycheck the mortgage swallows. Number 7. San Diego. San Diego's postcard image masks a brutal trade-off for anyone trying to actually own a piece of it. Median home prices in the region sit in the high $700,000 to low $800,000, while household incomes hover around $82,000. That spread forces families to commit over 40% of their gross pay just to keep a mortgage afloat. It's not a lifestyle upgrade. It's a math problem that erases your budget before groceries or gas even appear. Here's the thing. That 40% isn't just a mortgage line. It balloons once you add property taxes and mandatory insurance. Coverage costs have climbed sharply as wildfire zones expand inland and coastal areas face erosion and flooding risks. Several insurers have even scaled back or left the market entirely, which means fewer options and higher premiums for those who remain. For many buyers, the monthly bill feels like 2 rent payments stacked together. Now look at what's actually on the market. Regional supply is skewed toward luxury condos and gleaming single-family homes with price tags that reach well beyond what middle-income households can carry. Everyday buyers get pushed out to distant suburbs, adding long commutes on top of the heavy payments. You're not buying into the beach lifestyle. You're trading more of your income for less of the postcard view. Some listings show markdowns, with about a quarter seeing price cuts early in 2025. It looks like an opening, but the fundamentals don't change. High mortgages, elevated taxes, and rising insurance all keep the carrying costs unforgiving. Prices may soften, yet the math still drains your paycheck every month. So the San Diego story is simple. You can afford the view or the mortgage, but rarely both. And this southern squeeze sets the stage for a city just up the coast, where the sticker price alone tests what a middle-class salary can bear. Number 6. Burbank. Burbank wears its studio town label with pride, but try pairing that with a housing market where many listings now sit close to $1 million, while paychecks land just under $90,000. That math doesn't buy luxury, just a plain single-family home near the soundstages. The sticker shock alone is enough to knock most buyers out before they even sit down with a lender. Here's the thing. Even if you do manage financing, the current lending climate makes the choice miserable. With rates locked around 7%, the same Bay legal example we used earlier applies. An $800,000 home runs about $4,257 a month, and pushing toward $1 million is even steeper. That means middle-class households don't just stretch, they hit the breaking point almost immediately. The Hollywood-adjacent tagline doesn't matter when the budget leaves you cutting corners everywhere else in life. The market isn't giving buyers confidence either. Homes that once disappeared after a week now sit for 60 days or more. That slowdown tells you demand in Burbank is no longer automatic. Sellers hang on to fantasy pricing while buyers hesitate, which raises the risk you'll struggle to resell if you ever need out. A $1 million entry ticket loses its shine when you realize it might not move later. Layer onto that flat wage growth and looming cuts from nearby entertainment and tech jobs. There's no income engine here to pull residents out of the affordability hole. Ownership costs, mortgage, taxes, insurance keep climbing each year, but salaries don't move with them. Think of it as sprinting on a treadmill that keeps speeding up. You're sweating, but you're stuck in place. So Burbank in 2025 isn't a star's playground, it's a middle-class squeeze with a studio town price tag. And while that gap is punishing, the next stop shows how even a dreamlike setting can add a whole new layer of risk once nature gets factored into the bill. Number 5. Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz doesn't just sell you a postcard coastline, it sells you one of the hardest housing equations in California. Many Central Coast markets, including Santa Cruz, are now firmly in seven-figure territory, with the regional median hovering near $1.02 million. Pair that with an average household income of about $85,000, and the home price-to-income gap lands among the worst in the state. Buyers here end up throwing more than half their paycheck at housing before food, gas, or student loans even get tallied. Here's the thing. Owning by the beach comes with more than the high sticker price. The city sits in a climate risk triangle: flood-prone coastlines, sea level rise, and wildfire threats in the nearby hills. Insurance has surged in both coastal and hillside neighborhoods as providers try to offset the mounting risks. More homes now require add-on fire coverage just to qualify at all. Every extra policy pushes ownership costs further into unsustainable territory. And unlike trimming a grocery budget, there's no way around mandatory insurance. The housing market response? Cooling fast. Over a quarter of listings saw price cuts in early 2025, and days on market have doubled since the pandemic highs. That's a long way from multiple offers in a weekend. Sellers are quietly trimming expectations, but even discounted, every home drags along the same climate baggage. For many families, that's about as appealing as buying a used car with a guaranteed recall notice waiting. On paper, Santa Cruz is paradise. Surf breaks, redwoods overhead, small-town charm near Silicon Valley. In practice, it's fragile ground. Anyone considering a purchase here has to budget not just for the mortgage, but for the long-term costs of living inside a high-risk zone. And if seven-figure homes with climate costs feel heavy, wait until you see what happens when the price tag jumps higher and the paycheck doesn't keep pace. Number 4. Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara still carries the aura of luxury, but the housing math underneath it is anything but glamorous. Homes here often list well north of $1 million, with recent Central Coast reports putting the regional median around $1.2 million. Line that up against an average household income near $90,000, and you're looking at a gap that no budgeting app can fix. The coastline might sparkle, but the financials look grim. Here's the thing. Even the sellers can't keep the illusion going. Homes are taking about 60% longer to move than they did a year ago. That frenzy of offers above asking has thinned out, leaving properties idle far longer than before. It's a cooling trend. Coastal markets across California are now seeing proof that buyers aren't rushing in with blank checks anymore. And it doesn't stop there. Nearly a third of homes saw price cuts heading into 2025. You'd think markdowns would bring buyers running, but here they flag the opposite. Too few households can square seven-figure prices with real paychecks. The trims don't feel like opportunity. They feel like an admission that the old market momentum is running out. Now add insurance to the bill. With wildfire, drought, and mudslide risk all in play, premiums can climb into the multiple $1,000 range each year. Some hillside owners even struggle to find coverage at all. That's before factoring in jumbo mortgage payments and high property taxes, leaving new buyers stretched thin right from day one. And the pressure shows. Thousands of service workers and middle-income families have already left in recent years, straining the local economy and making the pool of future buyers shallower. Fewer people willing or able to purchase means an even riskier bet on appreciation. So Santa Barbara may look like a luxury postcard, but buying in 2025 amounts to taking on outsized debt and climate risk with little upside. The risks change form inland though, because the next stop isn't about million-dollar listings. It's about a desert market where the heat itself pushes the math over the edge. Number 3. Palm Springs. Palm Springs has long been marketed as a desert getaway, but in 2025, the math behind full-time ownership is breaking down fast. Desert resort markets across the Coachella Valley have seen sharp swings, and in some pockets, median prices are now well above regional averages. Local incomes, meanwhile, sit closer to $70,000, leaving buyers caught between glossy listings and paychecks that don't match the bill. A notable share of listings have cut their asking prices as the market cools. Sellers call it adjusting, but the bigger signal is clear: demand isn't matching supply. For years, investors piled into luxury condos and second homes, convinced the demand pipeline would never dry up. But with overbuilding now colliding with weaker rental returns, many are retreating. Vacancies eat away at revenue, and resale isn't the smooth exit it once was. For end users, that retreat translates into more listings that sit longer and a growing perception that values may not hold. Here's the thing. Climate isn't a backdrop here. It's the headline. Palm Springs saw more than 60 days over 110 degrees last year, and that brutal heat shows up on utility bills. Air conditioning becomes a survival tool, not a luxury, and summer electricity costs can double what you'd expect elsewhere. Layer on drought-driven water restrictions and higher landscaping costs, and the basic upkeep of a property feels like an open-ended meter you can't turn off. Insurance adds another weight. Rising wildfire risks across the Coachella Valley have pushed premiums sharply higher, and in certain zones coverage is not only more expensive, but harder to even secure. That's the kind of fixed cost you can't negotiate away. So while Palm Springs still glitters for weekend stays and short-term renters, the realities of full-time ownership feel more like a penalty than a prize. And if you think the desert is tough, picture a coastal retreat where the fog rolls in and the utility bill reads like a second mortgage. Number 2. Mendocino. Mendocino looks like a secret hideaway until you actually try to live there. The rugged cliffs and quiet coves draw people in, but homes in the area still demand prices well above what local wages can carry. Regional data puts the broader far north median around $385,000, yet Mendocino's coastal stretch trends higher, often pushing beyond what a $60,000 paycheck can manage. The mismatch is clear. Scenic views come at a cost that daily life doesn't support. Here's the thing. The postcard image skips all the service gaps locals deal with. Healthcare choices are limited, and reliable broadband is shaky at best. That makes working from home a gamble. One dropped call and your remote paradise loses its value. Families weigh these gaps even harder. Schools, emergency response, and infrastructure all lag, which doesn't inspire confidence in long-term demand. When buyers hesitate, it means anyone who buys in may struggle to get out. Insurance only adds to the uncertainty. In rural coastal markets like Mendocino, wildfire and climate risks make coverage expensive and inconsistent. Premiums have climbed dramatically, and some major carriers have already pulled out. The result is fewer choices and higher costs, exactly the wrong combination if you're trying to plan for stability. You don't control the bill, and worse, you don't control whether coverage will even be available next year. The market data reflects that tension. In spring 2025, about 35% of Mendocino listings saw price cuts, the steepest rate of markdowns in Northern California. Sellers are trimming expectations, but discounts don't erase the hurdles tied to living there. For many, those cuts feel less like opportunity and more like homeowners begging someone else to take on the risk. So Mendocino offers beauty, but only if you can accept fragility as part of the deal. And that fragile equation leads straight into the most notorious case of all, a major city where absurd prices themselves have become the warning label. Number 1. San Francisco. San Francisco isn't just another stop on the map. It's the clearest example of how housing turns absurd when costs outweigh everything else. Recent Bay Area data shows single-family home prices around $1.2 million, depending on the source. That number alone is more liability than dream, especially when you stack it against local incomes that can't keep pace. Here's the thing. The city is losing people. Significant outmigration in recent years has left higher vacancy rates and a demand curve that no longer looks bottomless. Neighborhoods that once defined scarcity now see empty units waiting for takers. In a place where FOMO once drove prices skyward, that shift is a very different signal. The market is blinking. Nearly 1 in 3 listings have a price cut. Days on market stretch longer. That's not strength, that's stress. Sellers are cutting expectations, but buyers stay cautious. Picture walking past a row of open houses where each flyer has a slashed number. Even with discounts, hesitation lingers. And then come the hidden costs. Condo and HOA fees can climb to the level of a used car payment every month. Insurance adds many thousands more each year, especially when you factor earthquake exposure and wildfire risk. So the condo by the bay isn't just your mortgage, it's a rolling stack of bills that rivals a second one. Add to that a cooled luxury market where multi-million-dollar listings linger or even vanish as projects get shelved. It's proof that uncertainty has reached every tier, from starter condos to hillside estates. The shine has dulled, and what's left is a city asking for more while offering less. So San Francisco stands out not as a prize, but as a warning. And that sets the stage for the bigger takeaway. California in 2025 isn't only expensive, it's a financial maze where the exits matter more than the views. California's housing story in 2025 boils down to three big themes. First, price-to-income gaps are brutal. Homes in many metros cost 10 or more times what a household earns. Second, insurance and climate risks push recurring costs higher, with some carriers pulling back just as buyers face wildfires, floods, and quakes. Third, the lock-in effect keeps inventory frozen as existing owners cling to low rates, which makes the market oddly illiquid even when prices slide. Would you buy in any of these cities this year? Comment yes or nope. I want to see where you stand. And like this video so the algorithm thinks I'm important. If you're considering a purchase in California, keep it simple. Add up mortgage, insurance, and property taxes. If that total leaves no breathing room, walk away. Subscribe, because the smartest move is knowing where not to buy.